So there is actually a Brexit benefit coming through, but it's also one that the Brexiteers don't really want, because the last thing that the Brexiteers want are essentially more unions, because that is essentially what is happening. If you are noticing, especially in the trade papers, we are seeing that I think it's Booths, I think there are concrete manufacturers. They are potentially looking at strike action. They're a subsidiary of Tesco's. There is Sainsbury's. Their logistics core is looking to go on strike as well. The last thing that Boris Johnson wants is he does not want unions to start getting more power and people to start getting more pay, because that was not the point of Brexit. The point of Brexit was to create a deregulated, low tax economy. And if unions start to push their workers to go on strike for better conditions and better wages, well, that sort of, again, defeats the very point of their Brexit, because they do not want, as much as they like to claim, oh, look at all these jobs that are opening up from all these Europeans that have left. They do not talk about, of course, the wages that are involved and the working conditions, because they do not care about those things. And bizarrely, the fact that you are having these workers' rights issues come up is a very good thing, because it is indeed about time that we had and did talk about these things, because, again, as we have now left Europe, much of our, shall we say, workers' rights and again, surrounding workers has come from Europe. And again, workers' rights and better pay and better conditions were the last things that the Brexiteers actually genuinely wanted from this type of thing, because you cannot have a low tax, low regulated economy if unions are pushing for strikes, pushing for higher wages and better conditions. So this may be a bizarre consequence of us leaving, of course, Europe, and of course those are good things, but again, these are things that, again, could have happened under us being in the European Union. There was nothing stopping us from doing that. It's just that these have enabled bizarre conditions of where we can actually start to push for those, because, of course, as we said before, all our workers' rights and whatnot from the past at least 15 years or more have predominantly not come from, again, being in the British Parliament as its source, but more Brussels. And again, that was a good thing, because, again, who has been in power all that time? Well, of course, it's been the Conservatives, and they have almost certainly not been pushing workers' rights. Indeed, the last actual big progression under workers' rights was actually under the Labour government under Brown before they left. But, you know, there you go. So anyway, before we do jump into this article, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can, well, buy me a coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do support the channel that way. So this comes from The Guardian. The title is Boris Johnson's Biggest Lie About Europe is Finally Coming Home to Roost. It was the big Brexit lie. No, not the 350 million a week to spend on the NHS or the bonfire of red tape. The lie was the shambles now enveloping British trade with Europe was an unavoidable price worth paying to leave the EU. That was rubbish. In order to further his chances of becoming Tory leader, Boris Johnson made two commitments. One was to resign from the EU. The other was to depart from the Europe's customs union and single market, aspects of which embraced the other non-EU states such as Norway. The second decision was almost a casual gesture to make him look more macho to the party's hardline Brexiteers. It was not to put to referendum and was beyond stupid. No news item today is free of consequences. Earlier this year, the effects of leaving the single market had been seen in the plummeting trade with the continent. And even accounting for the pandemic, the additional red tape is absolutely awesome. The HMRC estimates that traders will be handling at least 215 million more import-export documents a year at an estimated bureaucratic cost of over £7.5 billion a year. And tariffs may not even apply, but rules of origin and health standards do. And every truck, every cargo requires inspection. As for migration, the overall shortage of seasonal farm labour, according to the BBC Radio 4's Farming Today, is around 20% and more often. Fruit will basically rot in fields, pigs cannot get to the abattoirs, and Christmas turkeys will be a nightmare. Meanwhile, care homes in England are short of over 170,000 staff, and delivery firms are short over 100,000 drivers. Hotels have abandoned rooms and restaurant tables. Creative industries worth over £110 billion to the UK economy were forgotten by the Brexit negotiations and are now virtually isolated from Europe. This is not Brexit. Britain could have left Brussels and freed itself from a mass of rules and regulations. It was a result of leaving the single market, of Johnson's xenophobic belief that European trade standards were somehow, quote, not British. He was widely in favour of EU workers when he was the Mayor of London, but no longer that as Prime Minister. So I'm sure some of his current disruption will at least settle down. But the idea that trade with Britain's largest partner, by far the EU, will ever recover outside of some sort of economic union is absurd. So is the theory that any losses from the present chaos will be met by gains elsewhere. It seems bizarre to try and explain that to a Tory, that prosperity lies in open markets, not closed ones. Johnson has significantly not set up the Permanent Trade and Agricultural Commission to guard British interests in new deals. He is clearly desperate for deals, hopefully, however bad they might be. In addition, the National Audit Office has yet to do the normal impact assessment of Lord Frost's post-Brexit trade deal with the EU. It has not even bothered, and I imagine the assessment would be the colour of blood. Brexit never needed to be so devastating to the British economy. The damage has come from one decision: to depart the single market. The sensible path now would be for Johnson to eat humble pie and seek a fair and fast way as possible to readmission of that market. Britain would not imitate the protocol it has just agreed for Northern Ireland. It would not mean rejoining the EU, just rejoining Ireland. The most disastrous of historical ironies. Negotiating the single market in 1987 was Margaret Thatcher's proudest free trade achievement. It was in Britain's and even Europe's interest to provide a massive success. Johnson reversed that achievement in an act of single naked political ambition. He has pretended it was necessary for Brexit. That ultimately was his biggest lie. And we've talked about that before multiple times. It would be very, very easy for us just to rejoin the single market, but not the EU. And to a lot of people who say, oh, well, that you're again, there's always someone, I can't remember the name, they all say, oh, that's just exceptionalism. No, it's not. The EU, if we said we wanted to rejoin the single market, Europe would be very happy for us to do so. There is no one currently saying in the EU saying that we would not admit Britain back into the single market. They will be very happy to do so because, again, it adds an extra 65 million extra customers to an already quite substantial market. Again, more customers added to that market is perfect. It would also very, very, very much be happy to a lot of European companies who, again, have faced difficulties selling to British customers. And of course, a lot of British businesses in the future are going to be pushing for us to rejoin the single market, because we want in the UK European standards in a lot of areas. It's just that It's the Brexiteers that don't. It's the free market fundamentalists who, as we said right at the beginning, want a low tax, low regulation country. And of course, you can't do that if you are in the single market or the EU. And as we said before, one of the bizarre consequences we are seeing of Brexit is we are seeing lots of unions now start to push for strike action for better pay and better conditions, which, don't get me wrong, is a good thing, but that's the last thing the Brexiteers who led this project, including Boris Johnson, actually want. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button on your way out. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.